where it is time for us to talk trash, as we love to do here on the radio. And I am talking literally. We're talking about reusing, recycling, and reducing as well. Our panel, Leslie Van Steveren. We have Phil and Dan Hannigan as well, all in the studio with me this morning. Welcome back. Great to see you all.
Good morning,
Good to be here.
Let's kick off with the big news today, which is the Queensland Government suggesting that we should employ a ban on all single-use plastics right across the board. So not just the straws, that's been, a kind of a thing here we've been used to recently, but also looking at plastic cutlery, plastic plates, the entire thing. So what's the reaction, the response to that?
Look, I think it's fantastic because it is something that we really need to move forward on and be strong on, because we can talk about behaviour change all we like, but the thing is, sometimes, in daily life we've got so much that we're trying to get through, habits in the home, families, working. Just go the extra mile to make sure we're remembering our cups, the cutlery, that we're very aware of it. We need the extra incentive, and for that to be stipulated by government to come down, say, yes, you have to do it, and there is not a choice anymore, because even though we see a lot of people, they want to see change, if you go out, you still see so often, people are using all those single-use plates at most events. It's still takeaway cups everywhere. There needs to be a stronger drive, and this is a fantastic start.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We heard from Dominic Lamb, the retailers representative of the association, saying, like with the plastic bag ban, there's going to be a period of time where we have to slowly get people ready for this, because, you can get a bit of a backlash, particularly when it comes to, as you're describing it, Leslie, the idea of the plates that you might take on a barbecue or those sorts of things. It just is going to take people thinking about things a bit more and preparing a bit more, which might cause that negative response.
It's a whole culture change.
Yeah,
Well, jump in, Dan.
Yeah, you look back, I remember as a kid, I think we've discussed this before, we either had paper plates or mum and dad would actually just pack plates. You'd go to the creek, you'd eat, and then you'd take your plates home and
Absolutely.
Wash
And
it
look,
up.
I reckon there'd be a lot of people would be making that decision now when they're standing in a supermarket. They would look and think, okay, I'll go the paper plates over the plastic plate. But is that necessarily the best choice? In terms of, is the plastic plate that could be potentially recycled sometimes a better choice than the it's sometimes counterintuitive, right? You've made me second guess myself heaps of times.
And this is the thing, it is awareness, and here's the thing, I totally get it, because when you've got, for instance, I'm a mother of 3 kids, I'm also someone that does coordinate a lot of events in general, and sometimes the thought of, if you've got big numbers, it's so much easier just to be able to swipe it all in the bin, not worry about it. But there's actually an extra platform, to create more community, get everyone washing up together, clearing up. It creates that community and social interaction again.
Which we've seen happen in a few events here where they've done that.
Fiesta, the council did that fantastically well. But it's on the purchasing, because we've all got to be very conscious of, yes, a lot of people might choose paper plates, but again, that's still something that will continue to be able to up in landfill. If you go for the bamboo resins, that's probably not going to be recycled. The biodegradable plates, they can't go in the recycling bin. So if you're going to buy reusable plastic, look to make sure it is clearly labelled with what type of plastic it is. So
Could
it just
you
comes
use
up to
paper
awareness.
plates and go into composting? Are they, like the paper plates that you buy, are they usable in composting or generally
Perfect for
not?
composting,
They are.
yeah. As long as they don't have a plastic cover on it,
yeah.
and as long as they're strong enough that you can put them on your lap and
Well,
actually
which is
eat them.
again what most people
Yeah.
will be thinking. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to be annoyed by the fact that I can't get it. In
Yeah.
fact, give us a call, 1300 801 222. What's your reaction to the idea that you couldn't pick up a bunch of plastic plates or forks or cups in a supermarket?
You know what it comes down to is, because there is so many questions, how do I know? It's just one thing to really get in the habit of, and again, this takes time, is just pausing and looking at what you're buying, the labelling, what it's made of, is just even a really great start.
And the thing is, it has worked as far as the plastic bag ban's concerned, right? The numbers, the statistics bear out that we've really reduced the amount of plastic that's going out there into the system. So it kind of works. The evidence is there.
Yeah, look, I think the big point, and we talk about this in every single waste meeting we ever have, and it's a very hot topic, is circular economy. And what Leanne's doing here fits perfectly into that. Why would you create a product that goes out into the community that has no ability to be removed from that community other than a landfill? it doesn't make sense. We either have to have the infrastructure where we can recycle it, or don't send it to those areas in the first place.
And which is why government taking a role in that is so
Yeah.
important.
Showing its
Absolutely.
leadership. But it's the same as the pizza box. Once it's had the pizza and it's contaminated with organics, there's nowhere for it to go.
Yep.
If we don't handle organics.
Yep.
Up in the North Queensland with our hot sun, you can't put organics in your bin because it
It'll
walks down
go-
the road
Yeah.
by the time the man comes to collect it. And this is
Not
where they're
very
all,
nice at all.
yeah, they're all
There's
talking composting.
Got to be somewhere for the end of things, because it's all very well and good collecting these things or production, but whatever is out there,
Yes.
whatever is manufactured needs to be thought about how it's dealt with at the end of the line. But there has to be the infrastructure to create the end markets and to process it, and
Well,
there's not in Cairns.
We'll talk about that as part of the Recycling Week conversation in just a
Fantastic.
moment. Daz has also given us a call. He's just given us a call about problem with paper versus plastics. Have I got the right handle there, Daz?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in us. It's in us right now, Daz. It's
No,
in us
agreed,
right now.
and-
So the question then is, when it comes to sort of paper, product like that, would there be ones that are sourced from recycled product, that are sourced from, say, newspaper recycled product or
That's
something?
what Leslie's going to. We need that circular economy happening. We've got so much waste paper in this area. It's the only recycling paper thing is down in Albury. Now that's ridiculous to send it 2,000 kilometres.
But
It
I
has to be done here.
totally understand us, and I think that's going to be the most common thing, because there is so many different messages, there's so many different materials, and every single action we make has a consequence. So you're absolutely right, because they all have knock-on effect. The way to move forward, which there's going to be a lot more of a push on, is the circular economy, and that's capturing whatever is out in use currently, is put back into the system, reprocessed and reused in a way that we stop sourcing from natural resources and continually making new. And even with plastic, on that element, it's been able to capture, if people are using it or cutting it, to put down drop sheets to capture whatever's going out there, but also really to get out that single use. And this is why it's so great to see this proposed ban coming in to get rid of all the single use, because they're the really low grade, cheap, bulked out plastics that you can't do anything else with. But I think it's, again, just the consciousness to be able to aware of every consequence of every single material we use, and to use what is already in circulation.
Daz, if you were to go on a barbecue, what would you do? If you went on a barbecue, what would you do? In terms of, like, if you had to take if you had 10 people, a dozen people, and you were going to do the barbie, would you take plates that you could then wash up and stuff? Best answer ever. All right, Daz. Thanks, mate. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Daz.
See ya. That's Daz. He called on 1300 801 222. If you'd like to be Daz's friend, you can also call on that number. It's around 9:45. You're on ABC Local Radio Queensland. So talking about the plan that the Queensland State Government has to take those the obvious single-use plastics out of circulation, both within the business kind of retail perspective, but then also from the perspective of getting it from a supermarket, it not being available there. Are we leading the way a bit maybe now in terms of, because the ban for the bags has kind of become pretty much nationwide now, right? Is this something that will then, become something that other states might follow? We might see a country that is plastic use free in this single use way.
Well, Molly started the no more straws. That started in Cairns, and that led to the plastic ban.
I think Cairns is leading the way in a lot of areas. I mean, Cairns Regional Council has just taken another step forward with the Youth Climate Summit. Now this is where you get in the young, around 16 years old, to look at realistic actions, what they would like to see from the community, from businesses, and their vision for 2030. But to actually be able to look at real actions and ones that can be implemented to have their voice in that respect. Because a lot of the time when you see the next generation, they're looking at, very real ideas, but they are not the ones that, have the financial independence
to
to
be
do
able
it
to do
right
it.
now, but they're finding the way to communicate very realistic actions across.
Yep, no question about it. Let's now talk a little bit about, because we're just sort of picking up Cairns Council, Recycling Week coming up, Townsville listing as well this morning. When we were to compare what happens on the ground within the two separate local government areas, how would you compare the two of them?
Townsville's done well, but they've had that flooding event down there and a few cyclones. So they've had to beef their collection up, and then they just had a great big pile of rubbish that they had to sort through. So I know the head of waste down there is doing great, and he's running around the countryside now talking what he's done and his solution. So he'll be coming to a place close to you.
They've had a lot of challenges.
Yeah, they had 80,000 solar panels come off roofs down there. They had nowhere for them to go.
I had not heard that number, 80,000.
80,000 solar panels.
And this is the kind of e-waste
Yep.
that is literally unrecyclable. Like there's nothing you can do
Well,
with
it can be recycled, but no one's got the facility and the infrastructure to handle it.
So where are they at the moment? Are they still sitting somewhere in a pile?
I hazard to guess, maybe someone from Townsville can let us know.
Okay, well that's interesting. 80,000 of them, right. Well, let's continue the discussion though about what we do to solve the solutions, because
Yes.
you've been mentioning this as part of the recycling
Love
week.
the solution.
Well, I
conversation.
mean, it's the case around the whole country that there needs to be infrastructure
Yes.
to complete the loop, and that we need to not stop recycling and not stop the sorting and the cleaning and all of the best practice stuff that we should be doing during this period while we don't have the infrastructure.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does, because I mean, one common thing that we hear a lot is, a lot of people might think there's recycling, but there is no infrastructure up here to actually recycle and process in the north.
There is sorting.
There's sorting,
Which is the first
but the
stage.
processing is the actual shredding down, the washing, making it into the pellets, which can then be produced into something else.
And we have the people here doing things with the pellets.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's just that part
It's
of the
that part.
process in North Queensland that needs to be filled in,
Yeah,
that
and
section of
so
it.
the council is going to be doing an upgrade on the sorting and the collection, which is fantastic, but there's still that gap. Now, in the interim, a lot of the time we hear people say, but what's the point in the recycling? What's the point in still separating and keeping up with the practices? And it is so vital we keep to it, because if we stop doing it to actually then re-implement a whole shift in our actions and habits all over again, that's a lot harder than just keeping up with it. So it will be coming. There needs to be obviously, a lot more speed in enhancing this as an industry, because there's a huge amount of opportunity, but we just haven't needed to have it with the urgency we have now, because we have been able to ship all of our recyclables and our waste just on someone else. We can't do that now, and we need to move faster.
Yep,
Yeah.
infrastructure in place and that best practice stuff. So again,
Yes.
which we've been at home again, just hitting hard that idea of cleaning the stuff properly. Getting
Yep.
it into it, knowing that when you look at,
Decontamination.
when you look into the bin, the yellow bin, you see to yourself, I know guaranteed that every single bit in that can go into the next stage of the process and
Yes.
won't be rejected from the next stage of the process.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nice feeling to look at that.
And here's why, because even when we saw the images of all the shipping containers coming back from Malaysia, a lot of those had items like recyclable containers. So your milk bottles, even food containers that were actually a good type of plastic in the way that it can be melted down into made into something else. But it was shoved into those containers and sent back as unrecyclable because the action wasn't there in the first place
Yeah,
to
just because
sort
it was
correctly.
messy to begin
Yeah.
with. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
'cause
get
it
that
was happy.
entirely.
Yeah.
And once we get to a point where we can create stuff which is at the right level of non-contamination, then Bob's your uncle. We're
And
back
people can
on
see it.
both here and internationally as well. We are on ABC Local Radio Queensland, talking trash as we do with Leslie, Dan and Phil, ahead of Recycling Week, which is coming up next week. So I guess that practice stuff is the key point
Yes.
of the week, right, Leslie?
And
That's
it's not to get disheartened, because another thing, this is another reason why it's so important to show in markets and where it can go, because then people see where it's going. There's a lot more incentive and a lot more understanding and connection to you can actually make something else, and it is being done. It's not just you're being told one thing and then something else is happening. More transparency is very, very needed. But the recycling week is 11th to the 17th of this month.
Can I ask then, as we talk about Recycling Week, they in Victoria are looking at multiple bins, extra bins, so more than just the yellow and the green/red, but multiple ones, glass, plastics, etc. What's the feeling about doing something like that? I mean, obviously that is best practice essentially, and would do all of what we're trying to do within that one bin into a very obvious and overt structure, I guess. Would you support
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, for sure.
That's going to fail because you can't have 6 bins domestically. There's only room now for 2 because we've got 2 and we've made room for 2. The best way they're doing it in Europe is that they have different colour bags for different types of recyclers. So all those different bags you put in your
In the
glass in
one
one
bin.
One bin.
It goes in the one bin.
Oh.
It comes
Just
out the
separated.
end. The colour sort of
That
flips it
makes
there.
sense.
It gets unbagged. It's just done.
So you're not having six
No.
separate trucks coming by to collect 6 separate bins.
You
You've
still
still
collect-
got the one recycling
Yeah.
truck, but then
But they're
Yeah.
still separated.
still separated when it arrives at the
You go to the
depot.
supermarket,
Wow.
you buy your different coloured bags for what you want. You paid for it before you start.
That is a step up though again,
Yeah.
isn't it, in
Yeah.
the responsibility of
Yeah.
the end user within that
Yeah.
home context, or even more importantly in a business context.
Yes.
Like who in a business takes responsibility for doing that? We've talked about that before, Dan, right?
Yeah,
Within
definitely.
the
I mean,
context of
and this
business.
follows on perfectly because if you look at how it's done in many countries that are really successful at this, you take back your packaging to the place you purchased from. So if you did buy a carton of whatever drink from whatever store, you take those tins back or those bottles back. As you get your new one, you just stick them in the reverse vending machine. And product stewardship's a huge thing. Every single month I get a magazine, Waste Review magazine, and it's constantly a topic. And the whole premise is there needs to be a stewardship. There needs to be a way that if you produce something like a bottle, and we have COEX, or like tyres, there's Tyre Stewardship Australia, every single product that goes out to the market has to have its way back out of, and something or a body that actually monitors that. And the simplest way that seems to work really well in most countries is if you're selling the product,
It's your job.
it's your job, or at least give people the direction of where to go. Like, this is the point, so when you're finished with this item, this is where it goes.
You think that, from a corporate responsibility perspective, they'd be open to that as an idea, to take on that as a responsibility for them?
A lot are, but the challenge is always cost. I mean, business, they need to obviously focus on it, whether it be production or the operational measures, but to be able to educate the majority out there, because a lot of people obviously want to do the right thing, but it's the understanding of how it can have the benefits, and this is where it's going to come into play of needing the support from the government to say it is actually just something that needs to be done. But there is incentives already, like the waste levy for one. As much as we can separate out of that general waste, then it's less cost. So there's already massive benefits right now, but with that separation of the bins, that's a really good point from Phil, because a lot of the comments that I've seen personally, it's not the issue with the separation as such. It's always the question of, well, how on earth are people supposed to have all these bins in residential areas? There isn't the room. I know in Japan I've seen other suggestions as well of having a smaller buckets that can do, but the idea of the plastic bags,
Yeah,
as
I've
long
seen
as they
some,
can be
I've seen
recycled
some
as well.
inner city ones, like Sydney and Melbourne doing, boxes or similar, so one for glass, one for... But this bag thing makes total sense, because then there's a unified collection, right?
Yep. It's already working over in UU. It's fantastic. The people have taken it on. They're working with it. There's no problems with it. But in Spain, when I visited Spain a couple of years ago, you go down to the end of the street where the park is for the kids. Here's all the bins, the multiple bins, so that you can go down there for walk your dog, whatever, walk the kids, and you put your recycling in the individual bins. That's easily done, but domestically you can't have
No.
6 bins.
It's not
So
realistic.
They really do have to rethink
But
it.
as long as we've just gone through a bag ban, but so as long as if there is a bag system that those bags can be recycled, and again that comes to the infrastructure that's being put in place and long-term planning and design for how these things are going to be dealt with, because a lot of recycling they can't take the film the bags as well, so that has to be factored in with the design of the infrastructure and the way things are actually planned in the long term.
How
They
long?
just don't have a debagger in line.
Look, I got you there. Look, well, we're done now pretty much. It is ABC Local Radio Queensland. We've been talking trash with Phil, Leslie and Dan over the last half an hour. I want to finish off with the idea of how far away we are from actually seeing the infrastructure that we've been talking about for so long actually land on the ground somewhere.
There's a lot of
I know there's a lot of discussion,
Conversation.
a lot of conversation, but
there's draft strategies happening, but we need to see more speed on it, because there's a lot of people. I mean, yes, I'm just one person with my husband that's working on something that I know so many businesses that have the business plans in place, that have the knowledge how it's going to happen. What there needs to be is more support and more priority on how it's going to be dealt with at the end, and even with policies to put in place the demand for tenders for recyclables to be put in place. I know it's great for waste to energy, the infrastructure, the draft conversation. So there just needs to be things just move forward at a swifter pace to allow people that are trying to do things to move forward and get there, because I think the time has ended for just conversation, and we need to see things happening.
Yeah, there's been a
Yep.
disgusting lack of urgency, I think you could say, for many years, and we've got to a point, and I think Daz said it, we're stuffed either way. I don't believe that to be true. I think if we put the energy and focus that we've put into mobile phones and seeing how far they came in 10 years, we could do a massive amount for waste.
of course,
I've got 2
yeah.
years to turn it around.
Yep, no question. Oh, look, as always, really appreciate the chat. It's always great. And hopefully, next week in Recycling Week, we can reconnect and look at some of the specific subjects that we've taken up over the last little while, including 80,000 plus solar panels post the events in Townsville region.
But that's only in Townsville.
Yeah.
I bought 2 kilowatts off Dan.
Okay.
And,
All right,
yeah.
interesting numbers indeed. Leslie, Phil, Dan, thank you so much for your time. We'll catch you again soon. This
Thank you,
is ABC
Dan.
Local Radio Queensland. My name's Keir Shorey. Phil Staley will be with you right after the 10 o'clock news. And you know what that means? That means that it's time for Antiques on the Radio as well.